Hello everyone, in this video we are going to talk about SAS Proc Means. SAS Proc Means is very common SAS Proc because it can be used to calculate many statistics including the mean, the median. You can calculate sum, count, and sum squares, also confidence intervals. You can also calculate like standard deviation, variance, and the percentile. It's mainly used on the numeric data. So let me give you one example. So in this data set, we have account ID, and we have account type, and we have quality risk rating. So I set account ID as a character data type, which is actually commonly used in the real world. We set that as a character for the reason that sometimes when you have an account ID, and we want to append some zeros in the front. Let's say to make our account ID, let's say 13 digits, or sometimes go by 21 or 23 digits, right? So we usually append some zeros, and when you append zeros, you cannot make them numeric, so you really have to make them character. So the first column will be character, and the second, third one, I mean, it's obvious they are character values, and only the last one is the numeric. It's the numeric. So we have different type of accounts. The first type is checking, and the second type is saving, and the last one is HELOC. When you go with the credit risk rating, when you have a checking or saving account, usually the rating for that account is really high because the risk is really low, right? So what's the chance for people who default on checking and saving account? But sometimes you do have a lower rating here because some checking and saving account they support something called overdraft. I'm not sure if you guys have the overdraft option, just in case, let's say you write a check and then get bounced back and they charge you maybe $50-$60. If you have overdraft, they can try to withdraw from that overdraft account. So that by adding that, actually it creates a little risk. So when you have an overdraft account, your risk rating for that account can be a little bit lower. Just give you a little bit background information, but the main part is that the balance is the numeric, right? So when you run a proc mean, by default, it gives you those variables. So n basically stands for the number of observation. You can see from here. For the balance, you can see we have balance from 200, 300, up to negative 10,000, right? So also produce the mean, basically just the average, and then can produce the standard deviation, based on those account types, and also the minimum value and the maximum value. So by default, you're gonna see those five variables, only for numeric data. But sometimes it doesn't make sense to calculate standard deviation for all types of account, right? So you really want to group them. So later on, we're gonna see how we can group by the account type and then calculate the standard deviation and other variables, right? So since we only have one numeric account, so let me try to add another one, right? So when you have a balance, sometimes you have an interest, right? So let's say this one for checking account, you have a $10 interest. Actually, I don't think we have the checking account which actually generate interest. But when I was working in the US, I know some checking account they do have interest. But anyway, I just add here just to show you guys how the proc mean works, right? So you can see by adding the interest, I'm also adding the two missing values on line 11 and also 12. The reason I'm adding the missing values because I want to show you by default when you do the proc mean, right? So it doesn't including the missing values. So you can see on the bottom that the interest actually the number of observations actually is 5. So the standard deviation, the mean, and also the minimum. So all the calculation is based on those 5 variables. That's actually very important because sometimes you might consider the missing value is calculate based on not based on missing, but based on like a 0, right? So that's a common mistake in when people use SAS Proc Means. Okay. And so that's basically calculate all the numeric values. And another thing you can see is the decimal points is quite long. I mean, for the second part, it's quite long, and because by default SAS use the best format. So to change the decimal, so in this case, I put the the maximum decimal. I put as 2. I put as 2. So that actually will reduce the decimal point. Reduce the decimal point. Bring that one to the to the digit, right? So that's you can use maximum decimal and to change the decimal points. And then the other thing is that when you want to calculate certain statistics that doesn't go by the default, let's say by standard deviation, the minimum, maximum, you can try to specify the statistics you need here, just after the data. In this case, I want to see the number of observations, also the number of missing values. So you can see from the right that for the interest, right? So we have 5 observations without missing values and 2 with missing values. So that helps you to identify some missing values here in the data set. So if you want to see some statistics, just make sure you put just right after the data equal to a count. You can put there. Later on, I'm going to show you what kind of statistics you can put there to see in the final result. Okay. So in this case, you want to calculate the median. Mean and the median, they are different. Median basically take the one in the middle. If there are two, you just take an average, and you can also see the range. So those are the things that you can see, right? So in this case, you see the median and the range on the right. Okay. So again, it's based on the non-missing observations. Right? So when you try to, sometimes you want to group them, right? So in this case, you want to group them by account type, right? And then you calculate the standard deviation. And because it doesn't make any sense to calculate standard deviation between checking and HELOC. They are totally different, right? HELOC basically is home equity line of credit, so basically you borrow money, right? Checking is something that you put the money in the bank, usually for the short term, but it usually balances positive most of the time, right? So you want to calculate those statistics based on different account types. So what you do is actually you use a by statement. So before you use a by statement, you really have to sort it first. So you can see on the line number 16, you do a proc sort, and then you put a by. So basically, you sort the data first, and that helps the program to group them. So that's how you use using the by statement. When you use the by statement, you also generate something for the missing account type. So I put line number 12 as the missing account type, just to show you guys. And the missing type is always shown on the top. So it doesn't matter how you short it, right? So the missing one is always on the top. And then you can see other things are basically sorted by the alphabetic orders. So those are just you can see the statistics by the groups, right? So using by statement. Right? If you want to see just one variable, for example, balance, and you don't care about the statistics for the interest, you can use a var, like say line number 17. You can use a var statement. Say all I want to see is the balance, right? So you can specify there. Instead of using a by statement, you can also use a class. Right? So class will also help you to group the different account types. Let's say different types, right? So, but the difference between class and by actually is not that clear. But when you use a class, you can see the output is different. So they actually, all the data actually grouped kind of together into one big output table. Whereas in buy, you can see them in separate tables. Uh, I guess some people say class is more convenient because you don't have to sort it. And some people say the buy is more efficient because after you sort it, and it's basically generate one part at a time. So you go back to the previous example, you can see you generate the first one first because you sorted, right? And then generate the second one, the third one, the fourth one. So that's actually minimize the memory usage. But we can't really see how SAS is coded underneath, so we can't really tell. But you can. So those are the two options you have. Depends on what you really want to see in the output. You can try both if that will satisfy your needs. So just get familiar with the by statement and also the class statement. Right? Uh, uh, Also, you can output this result, right, and to another table, another table. Uh, so in when you try to write output, you basically on 19 you can see you have to use the output statement, and you put out and equal, and you give a data set name. In this case, I just put into work folder. So when you get the statistic, you can output another table and can do maybe further analysis. So those are just basic things. And the last part I want to show you is that you can use different statistics. Those are all the keywords. There are two columns. It looks all mixed all together, right? So you can see you have the mode, you have the sum weight, the sum square, standard deviation, percentile. So you can use all those keywords. Basically, you can take one keyword and put on maybe line number 16. So I use P50. So basically percentile 50. So with the data above, I want to see at 50th percentile. So which number I get, right? So on the based on this data for the interest, I take interest variable using var interest. So the 50 percentile is number 15. I can check manually whether that's right or not, right? So in this case, I take percentile 50. So instead of using the P50, you can take any keywords, right? Any keyword from the right and place there. Or you can actually put a multiple if you want and get the statistics you need, right? So the proc means actually you can see is very useful, and it's just one simple proc, you can get all those statistics you want, from the table on the right. So I guess that's it for the proc means. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you very much.